is a joy because he has done public service for America across so many areas, including ambassador to Japan and now senator from very much his, Tennessee. Bill Hagerty joins us, the Republican from Tennessee this morning. Senator Hagerty, I have to go to the stunning Washington Post analysis this morning of the unvaccinated. You are a leading spokesman on this. How are you going to convince the unvaccinated of your Tennessee to get it together and get vaccinated?
Well, I think we're off to an incredibly good start thanks to Operation Warp Speed. I don't think there's enough credit given to the progress that we made here at an unprecedented level here in America. In Tennessee, I've been very clear. I've taken the vaccine. My mother, who is 89 years old, is taking the vaccine. I lead by example. We continue to encourage people. It's a personal choice for folks, of course, but I've certainly been clear that I've looked at the data, and I think the right decision, certainly for me and my family, was to do just that.
How do you sell it? We talked to French Hill of Little Rock the other day with the same challenges. I would suggest Arkansas, frankly, a grimmer story than any Tennessee. But what's the prescription you have with your knowledge of Nashville media and Tennessee business? What's the prescription? What's the plan to jumpstart this as we hear from President Biden?
I think as we look at where we're headed right now, the numbers continue to look much better in terms of fatality. And we just need to continue to talk about that positive outcome, that positive result, and encourage people to continue to get behind it. As school reopens, things get back into the swing of things, we'll probably see another pickup in inoculations.
One final question on this, Senator, because I know Taylor Riggs has some important questions as well. Senator Hagerty, what do you need from former President Trump to send a message to the unvaccinated?
President Trump is having a hard time sending any messages thanks to the censorship of big tech. His normal means of communication has been incredibly stifled. I think that's incredibly troubling. In terms of his message to people, no one worked harder than President Trump to put a vaccine in place. I think people know that. I think he can convey that. But he put a tremendous amount of work in place with Operation Warp Speed to make this vaccine possible, not only for America, but for the rest of the world. I think that's an incredible example. He should talk about that when he can.
Senator, pivot with me, if you will, please, to infrastructure. What is the path to a bipartisan $579 billion infrastructure deal?
Very hard to say. Chuck Schumer today is planning to put a procedural vote in place to start the process on this. Yet we haven't seen any text. We don't know the content of it. I haven't seen anything. This sounds remarkably similar to something that we've all seen before. You remember you have to pass the bill before you can see what's in it? Obamacare 2.0, that didn't work out well for America. So we have a lot to see and a lot more work that needs to be done before I can comment on exactly what's in the bill and how we should proceed on it.
Is this two-path approach still the right way to go?
Well, certainly not the path that I would take. I'm a businessman my entire career. I step back and look at this and say, what's happening here? You've got a two-path process, one that, a lot of effort has gone into play. I think I respect my colleagues who have worked hard to put a bipartisan plan in place. But as you know, when you negotiate a deal, often what's even more important is what you negotiate out of a deal. Yet we've got the Biden administration, we've got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer talking about pushing everything that was negotiated out of the deal right alongside. In fact, Nancy Pelosi has said that she's not going to even look at the bipartisan deal unless the completely partisan reconciliation package is put forward too. I wouldn't call it a reconciliation package. It's just another reckless tax and spending program that they're trying to shove through, a massive program, something that we've never seen before. And I think it's going to have devastating effects on the economy. So I'm very concerned about enabling this partisan package to go through under the guise of a partisan, infrastructure package that's far smaller.
Senator Hagerty, I am fascinated what your prescription is for your Republican Party. So many of the interviews we have with Republicans and with Democrats is a liberal tranche of the Democratic Party really troubling for moderate Democrats. Do the Republicans respond to that by being more staunchly conservative or by moving to a Lamar Alexander-like middle?
I think what we need to do is continue to convey what's actually happening here. We need more business people like me in Washington. I think that's the point. We have a hard time conveying the essence of what's occurring here. But right now, what we're doing is we've already seen a $1.9 trillion package move through on a wholly partisan basis back in March of this year. That's roughly 10% of our GDP. They're talking now about dumping 20–25% more of our GDP into this so-called infrastructure package. It's going to be massively inflationary. We need to convey that. When we hear moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin say he doesn't want to put something through that isn't paid for. He doesn't want to increase the debt. These are things that we need to push back on and say, well, if it's going to pay for itself, you've got to look at how they're talking about paying for it. And if they're talking about crushing taxes on job creators, if they're talking about killing capital formation by putting capital gains taxes in place, those types of policies are going to be devastating to our economy.
Right.
The American public is smart enough to understand this. We need more business people talking about this in a way that's rational and easy to understand.
Senator Hagerty, I wasn't going to bring this up, but you mentioned private business in Washington. I need you to comment this morning on the jailing of the private equity gentleman from Los Angeles, Tom Barrack. What were your thoughts when you heard of these actions by Justice?
Well, I've only seen a headline or two, so I don't know, anything about the specifics of the content of this case or what it has to do with private equity.
Well, it doesn't have to do with private equity, but certainly it is of note here as well. Senator Hagerty, thank you so much for joining us today. Bill Hagerty, he is of Tennessee. Greatly appreciate that.